All right, everybody, we are back. It is the spoiler-heavy episode of episode 3. Thanks for joining me here on the channel. If you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here to the channel before, well, we do a lot of immediate reactions out of the theater. We had Katie Sackhoff live in studio talking about the show. You got a chance to win her helmet signed by her. She's going to come back and she's going to announce the winner. We got to go to that interview and figure out how. But all that and more is on this channel. And if you don't want to miss a thing, then join us on the road to 100,000 subscribers, guys. Just hit 70. We're on our way to 100, but we need you guys to join us. So show just a little bit of class, just an ounce, and head on over there and do it. All right. So if you saw my immediate reaction last night, or even if you didn't, what I said inside of that reaction was, I'm torn on this episode. Because here's the thing. What you won't hear me say inside of this episode, inside of this review, you won't hear me say, well, the show just didn't feel like Star Wars. The whole damn thing felt like Star Wars. The whole damn thing. The thing is, after really thinking about it and marinating on it, I just feel I watched 2 shows. I watched 2 Star Wars shows in the course of 50 minutes, which I think was one of the issues. I think the pacing was a little off with it, and people go, well, you didn't have a problem with that when it was Din in the Boba Fett. No, but it doesn't change the fact that it was 2 different shows. But the difference was it was characters that I already spent a lot of time with, continuing a story that I already knew, as opposed to setting new characters up, even though we had seen the Doctor once before and we'd seen Katie O'Brien's character before. You're really kind of diving into, well, this is kind of a brand new show right now. This is the stuff on Coruscant, with basically taking what happened to some of the Nazis and taking them away and putting them into the system, and how are they going to react, and how are they going to work, and it was fascinating and interesting, but it was jarring at the same time, because you had these 2 different shows. You had the Mandalorian that we knew, and you're continuing on this path of what we've seen from. I still think episode 1 and 2 should have been one episode, because those really, I think, scratch each other's back. I've loved all the storytelling so far, by the way. I just think the pacing and the how they're putting the shows together have been odd choices. I think 1 and 2 easily could have been one episode and a longer episode. And then this one, even if they would have kept everything inside of it, even if it was 2 different shows, essentially, I think cutting back and forth to Din and Bo, and then the Coruscant stuff, because what I don't want to say is, well, it has nothing to do and it's filler. You don't know that, because you don't know how it's going to. They've been setting up this cloning thing the entire time, and they got more stuff. They mention of the CAMEO, the Kaminoans, whatever the hell they're called. They mentioned them. They mentioned the cloning. They mentioned all of that, how it's going to play, and the idea that he wants to do it to help the New Republic, and the idea like how the New Republic and forming all this stuff and seeing a little bit more of it, and eventually leading to the stuff that happens in the sequels, and doing to the sequel trilogy what the Clone Wars did for the prequel trilogy is interesting if they can pull it off. But you don't know what they're setting up yet, so you can't say it's filler, because you don't know how that's going to play out with the Doctor, and because you got to assume that Katie O'Brien's character is working for Moff Gideon, and she's played it brilliantly, and she's a mole inside of the system. Even though the New Republic people are idiots, what are you leaving her alone for in that room? But anyway, it's just, if you cut back and forth, because that's the story you're telling me because there's so much more you could have done with Din and Bo, because you set up. It's set up wonderfully in the beginning. I mean, it really is. It just throws you right into it, right where we left off. And I'm like, okay, look, we're arcing. We're going right from the caves, and they're in the caves, and Din has done it, and she asked him, hey, did you see the thing? And he's like, no, I just sunk. You didn't see the thing? What thing? No, nothing. No, we're cool. I'm just kidding. And they realize they're gonna get the hell out of Dodge. He smartly takes a sample of the water, because she's like, I'll be your witness. He's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to be good enough. And he takes a sample with him, and they bail, and they get the hell out of Dodge. And she's like, yeah, all right, I'll go with you. Why not? I'll let him know that you did your thing. And this, to me, is a classic Mandalorian, classic Star Wars, things we wanted to see, right? And I also think this is why I think it does combine a little bit, because you got to assume that these TIE fighters are coming out are still part of this sect that Moff Gideon's part of, and the idea to try to resurrect the Emperor. That's what you assume that the goal is going to be, and why that the First Order was able to form is because you had pockets of these type of things that are still running around and out there because they have got a squad, man, and they're coming after. And this was great. I mean, this is such. It just shows you how far television has come too. This whole scene was just amazing, and you have watching Din and Bo fight together, and I love the idea now that they're both that if again we know that Cara Dune has since moved on, and Bo-Katan has been a staple of Star Wars for a long time. The fact that they're coupled up now and that she is going to be with him and doing these things, and we already know, and if you're watching the Clone Wars and you watch Rebels, you know what Bo-Katan can do. And if you haven't, and you watch Battlestar Galactica, you know what Katie Sackhoff can do. If you haven't done that, then you really get a glimpse of, okay, well, she's a pilot. She stays cool for the most part in this scene. She stays cool, and she's able to just chill out, relax, take these things out, and we also show that she's a really good pilot. So this whole thing was set up wonderfully. They go back, and they're trying to get to the castle. I mean, I guess it was harder to go anywhere else because that's really, I mean, maybe they could have gone back, flown towards Mandalore, but I mean that would have taken away from the mission. So that she's just trying to go where she knows. I love that they still use the old kind of 70s tech and they keep it consistent. They're blowing these things up left and right. Din, this is the most Mando he's been so far in the show in this season. He hops out, no fear. She's like, okay, I'll meet you later on. He's like, wee, and he gets to his ship and he just runs in, takes off, doesn't even think because he knows, they could blow him up. And, I mean, just seeing this, the old school, the version of the Empire, this is when they do it in a way that doesn't seem just like, oh, here we go. Here's the Empire, stormtroopers, here's two TIE fighter pilots again. It's just nostalgia. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like, okay, these are the remnants that are still trying to hold on, and they're going to do whatever they can, and they've got a mission. They're sent there by somebody. And I think, again, we know that it's probably Moff Gideon, one way or another, or whoever he's working with that crew. Because it's been a couple years, I love this Tim Burton Batman shot. Comes in, does his thing, and just fires away and takes him out. We know the pilot that they both are now, and it was just a great dogfight, all the way through. Just a really, really good dogfight, and Bo is doing her thing, and I love this shot where the gravity of it all when she's coming down and Trashbot goes up into the air. Comes down, and then it's kind of a comedic kind of R2 moment, which I liked a lot. I think it worked. And Grogu's like, oh, I'm all right. I'm cool. I'm chilling. And they didn't overuse him in this episode. I like that. He's just there. They didn't need to overuse him, play out the cute factor. It worked. Now, if it was a full episode with these guys, I don't know. But then the bombers come in and they take out Bo's castle. She can't lounge around anymore. Netflix account destroyed. So boom. And now she's pissed. There's my house. Sons of bitches, they just blew up my house. And the castle's just gone. That poor droid probably took the brunt of it. Now, there weren't a lot of people in there, but she fires this. I love it. She fires this first shot, takes him out, and then goes to go after him. But this is what I love about Bo. Even though she's pissed off, Din's like, snap out of it. There's too many. You're going to die. And they take off. I can't win that. And they move. They hightail it out. It's a great fight. They zip off into, and I always love this shot when the TIE fighters, where do they go? I always wonder where the TIE fighters go after somebody dips into light space. They always do this. And so that's the majority of Bo and Din in this episode. We get them later on, but that's the majority of it. Now, I still think that maybe you could have extended and said, all right, let's go to their mission. We know we set up their mission. Now let's set up Coruscant. Because the Coruscant stuff, when you see it, of course, as a Star Wars fan, you geek out, right? You're like, okay, it's Coruscant. We haven't seen Coruscant in this kind of setting. We saw it in Andor. And I know a lot of people said that this episode kind of plays like an Andor episode. And it does in a certain aspect where, I mean, I felt it too. But I think where you're playing the politics of it and you're playing the politics now in the New Republic, it's stuff I always wanted to see. Again, I don't have an issue that they did this storyline. I just think that they spent a long time there asking you to engage with characters that they haven't set up thoroughly yet. And I know, well, that's the point. They're setting it up in this episode. Yeah, I know, but you got to, I think, again, people are going to disagree with me, but I think you ease them into it a little bit more. Still tell the same story that you were telling and go back and forth so it feels consistent to the show. Because with Andor, because what I won't, if someone says, well, you liked Andor, but you didn't like this. Yeah, but Andor, again, consistent from episode 1 to all the way through. This is the tone. This is how we're doing it. This is what it is. And then they didn't start out with 2 different characters in a different tone and a different show where we always talked about, and Mando is like this perfect soup of Star Wars of everything. That's what that opening scene is. And then Andor is this like political thriller that is very specific. And that's what this was, this storyline. So they get you there, though, and the way they set it up is pretty great. They take you to Coruscant, and it looks and feels, and you feel like, it's like you wanted to see it from the prequels and the way it's set up and all this. And this is where we don't know it right away, but it's Katie O'Brien as she's moving through. We had seen her on Gideon's ship and all that, but now when you watch it back, okay, well, this is a mole who's playing her role, a mole playing the role. She goes in and she's the doctor, played by Hector Navarro. And he's basically saying, and he just, what a great job, a kid, but the actor does in playing this role, because even when you saw him in the first season, he's doing his work, and that's what he just wants to do his work. He doesn't want to hurt Grogu. He wants to do his work, and that was the thing. He said, "Don't kill him." He wants to do his work. He's not a bad dude. He's a scientist, and he clearly from this episode, which is consistent from what I still don't think we got enough of him, to give the full episode. But and I also want to say this: performances were great all around the board in this episode. There was not one. It was not one where it was like, okay. I just think that, again, easing into it would have, because I did see there's back and forth. There's people who love this episode. This to me is like the Fly episode of Breaking Bad. It's like you can't say that if some people I saw filler, I saw some people say boring, I saw some people and I get a bunch of the criticisms for sure. There are people who love the episode. I think for me it's an edit. Mine is just editing. That's my biggest gripe with this whole episode is the editing, because the performances are fantastic. And I love that Katie O'Brien, we just had her in, by the way. We had an interview with her, but they expanded her role, by the way. And you can see why in this. But I love this idea where he's basically telling him, he's like, listen, man, I did some stuff. I'm here to, this is what the Senate looks like now. And he's like, I messed up. But look, cloning it was a thing that was set up back in the day. There's some advances. This is my tech, and yada yada yada. And he's giving this whole speech, and he's kind of letting them know. And as he's talking to everybody, almost as like he's famous, but he plays it so brilliantly, and he's so awkward. And then you get this guy, not the actor himself, but the character looks like he likes to sniff of his own farts. Politics, empire, rebellion, same thing for me. Which he was fine, but and then you just kind of see this. This is what I liked about the setup on this. Again, the pacing of this particular show that we're watching at this point, the pacing of the show, like if you're looking at that 2 shows, it's bizarre. Let's call it Mandalorian, and then let's call it New Republic. If this is an episode of the New Republic, the pacing of the show is great. You're getting this kind of Severance type of feel. And the pilot episode of this New Republic show is the Doctor. And the Doctor's just going through the motions. He had this purpose in life, and he doesn't know what to do with himself now. And he's in the back, and he's talking to the droid, and the droid just driving him around the town. He's looking at everything. And then he's partnered up here with these degenerates from the old empire. And they're all rehabilitated or trying to get into the program. And the New Republic has put them together and introduced. And this is when we get the first shot of kind of Katie O'Brien's talking about Moff Gideon. And maybe she didn't even tell them about it, but he knows. And he's like, you worked on that ship. And she's like, yeah, I don't really like to talk about that much. Yeah, because you don't want to talk about it because you're still working for him. And then this is a great moment where she's really good in this role, because the character is kind of really methodical, and the character, like, you almost thought because I remember talking to Perry about this. We thought she was always playing the mole on the other side of it. Like she was playing the mole on when she was on Gideon's ship, and that she was part of the New Republic, but that's not the case. I like that they went this route with her, and I think she plays it really, really well. And especially when you get a chance, like I had never met Katie O'Brien before until she came in. She couldn't be more the opposite of this character. She is like silly and goofy and fun and kind of and just like and so open and just seems like the most. Again, I met her once, but seems like the most honest person to have just kind of thoughts or feelings right on her sleeve, right? And plays this really, really well. I actually think she was great in Ant-Man, but I think this is the best I've seen her thus far, because she plays this really well, because you don't really know the role. You don't really know what's going on here, in the way that she kind of befriends the Doctor. And he's still going through this thing. He talked about how much he loved these little treats. The Empire is the thing that he met, the thing that he missed working and then lo and behold, there's one on his doorstep. So this plays out really well. Again, back to the Severance stuff. He goes through the motions. He doesn't have a purpose. And she's like, hey, come on, let's go to the festival. Take one of these stupid things and let's walk around. He's like, all right. There's music playing from the prequels in the background. There's some references. You got Santa Claus doing some stuff. I know he's like the DP of some stuff, but look, he's doing tricks. Yeah, and he's like, let's go touch this rock. Have a blast. Touch the rock. I'm going to touch the rock? Like, yeah, hey, stupid, there's a droid. He's going to blast your hand off. Isn't that funny? And then it goes back to the Severance moment, and she's like, do you have regrets? Do you have thoughts? Do you hate everybody? He's like, no, I don't. And it just kind of shows you no purpose at all. And she's like, look, man, I'm going to give you a purpose. We can do some things. And she's talking him into it. This is where I believe, kind of when I was watching her, I'm like, what are they trying to do? Because the New Republic is still trying to figure out who's helpful, who's not. Do they want to do cloning? Do they want to do these things? And clearly she's still working for Gideon, because Gideon has this mission, seemingly from the Emperor, to have all these things happen. And she knows that she can get this guy to get the info that they need. So it does play into the storyline that has been happening. But again, not to reiterate, but to reiterate, it just cut back and forth. Show me a little bit more, because show me back Mando, because we're in the New Republic show. We watched the New Republic show for a bit, because then it stays on the New Republic show. And as we kind of move on, we get him now, and he starts asking questions, and they're like, no, just shut your mouth, know your role, do your thing. And Heroes Reforged is waiting for you. So he sees this, and it's kind of like a symbol. And then he asks, listen, hey, droid face, so if I wanted to do some of my research, could I do that? You're like, no, sorry, but cloning's illegal, and you should know that. But if you want to smoke a joint, that's legal now on Coruscant, so you can do that. He's like, well, that sucks. But she's like, let's do it. He's like, all right, we'll do it. Come on, let's get the hell out of here. So they go on the train. The train was like the old Western scene. And again, I loved seeing old Empire walking around in the new Coruscant, because you always saw the opposite. So, and I was talking, Jamie Costa and I were kind of texting back and forth earlier, and he made a point. So it does feel like this, if they made like a Thrawn series, this would be kind of the type of stuff you'd see in the Thrawn series, or if Andor continued past the events of Rogue One, past the rebellion inside of, the through line of season, whatever it was, of how the government, this would fit inside of that, right? And I'm not saying that the storyline itself isn't going to play into Mandalorian. It clearly is. But it goes on for a bit, and it keeps going on. And interesting that the first kind of 50-minute episode that they decided to do after a while is this one. But they're on this train, and I like the idea, because she's really befriended him, and she befriends us in it too. We're like, okay, maybe this is legit, and she's just trying to show him the way, and the setup, the scenery, all of it, and these kind of Battlestar Galactica droids almost are chasing them through, not too much, but just enough where they jump off. Now this was, to me, very reminiscent of what we saw in the new trilogy, and how you saw like the the down ships and the destroyers out there, and going in there and have these conversations. She introduces herself, and they have, again, this wonderful moment. And you could think that maybe she was going to get killed or something, but nope. She betrays his little ass. Betrays him. And I love the old costumes, all of it and more, right? And look at this like stone cold face by Katie O'Brien, which was amazing. And just basically, I ratted this guy because he went off the grid. You ratted him out. And this is a cool moment here, too, with the Mon Calamari, where he says, it's a trap. And he kind of looks up and gives a little reference. Hey, I know that reference. And they're not like torturing him. They're just trying to chill him out a little bit. But if you put the voltage up too much, you can burn his brain. Now, this is the part I thought was a little silly. So she's like, I want to stay around with my buddy, who I met yesterday. And he's like, you want to stay around with your buddy? All right, you know what? This guy just kind of ran off. He had cloning secrets and everything too, but we're gonna leave him alone with you. And that voltage right there that can burn his brain, we're gonna leave that on. So we're gonna trust you. And if it burns his brain, we're probably not gonna know how it happened, even though you're the only one in the room. And what does she do? She turns it up and burns his brain. So now he can't say anything. He's gonna be, but cool scene, but still, maybe they could have done that a little better. And then we're back to Din and Bo. We're back to the Mandalorian show. So first episode of the New Republic, out and about. You get to Bo, and she's like, yeah, they're not going to let me in there. He's like, you haven't taken off your helmet since the whole thing, right? She's like, no, I haven't. He's like, well, so you're good. Come meet my parents. So they get there, and this whole scene was great because he's still, this Vizsla beef that he's got with Din, still, after all the times Din's kicked this guy's ass, he's still beefing with him. And they walk up, got the helmets on. He's like, you know what? You're not welcome here. She's like, come on, man. I just bathed my balls in the Mandalorian water. And he's like, so? What does that mean? I don't buy it. And he's like, well, take this and leave me alone, dickhead. He's like, what'd you just call me? He's like, I called you dickhead. So they take him in to see the armorer. And this was an interesting scene, though, too, because she checks us and is like, he's telling the truth. Why is he going to lie? Din hasn't been a liar. She tests the water. Everything's good to go. And then she basically says, look, Bo, this I loved. She said, look, Bo, here's the deal. You're in. You haven't taken your helmet off. You can ride with us. And the line that I liked was, and leave whenever you want. It's like, what I hope they didn't do, and they didn't, was, okay, listen, if you take this Kree, you cannot leave. It's over for you. You have to stay here with us. You don't want to do this, you take off. And I think this is going to start to mend both clans to get us back to Mandalore, which is a good setup. And it also gives Bo more of a purpose. So the stuff that they did with the actual Mandalorian show, I thought was great. The stuff that they did with the New Republic show, I thought was great. It's just two different shows in one. So I understand all the criticisms of people going, well, I'm right in the middle of watching this Mandalorian episode, and then this new show kind of pops up. And I'm like, what the hell is what's going on? Because even in Boba Fett, it was pretty much just 2 Mandalorian episodes. And that was it. Maybe a little Boba Fett in there, I guess, maybe a little. But it was less jarring because you had already had those meetings with those. Someone, Brett just farted. That sounded like a rip. Anyway, so yeah, both of the episodes inside of this episode were good. It just I think pacing was way off and editing was way off. That the performances worked, everything else worked good, but that's my thoughts on it. What's your thoughts on it? Let me know. I gotta know. I'm sure this is going to be a divisive episode for sure. I already saw it in the immediate reaction that I did last night, but I gotta know from you guys. Comment below. Obviously, click that like button. It helps more people see this channel. But I gotta know what you thought of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I felt like two different shows. Did you feel like it was a filler episode? If so, why? Do you think they're not going to tie it in at all? Do you think that filler episode, what it means definition is if it has nothing to do with the plot, it's not going to come back. It's just there to kind of, because they had nothing else really to do, so hence fill it. So if you don't think it has anything to do with the plot and you call it a filler, just let me know how. If you think it's a filler, but yet it still has something with the plot, not a filler. So let me know exactly what you thought. The thoughts of the episode. Do you agree with me that maybe if they would have cut back and forth from the New Republic show into Mandalorian, it would have been better paced and maybe you would have gotten more involved in it? Or did you just love it the way it was? Comment and let me know exactly what you thought. I got to know. And once again, show just a little bit of class if you haven't already. Help us to the road to 100,000 subscribers. We have passed 70. We're on the way to 100, but we need you guys to help out. So if you're brand new to the channel, just show a little. You can get the Katie Sackhoff interview, the Diego Luna interview. You can get all the out of the theater reactions, the reviews, and more. But you got to subscribe. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the flip side. It's The Mandalorian, Episode 3. Peace.